So, I recently reviewed the first wave of Jada Toys' new Scooby-Doo line. If you haven't already watched that, I'll link it below and at the end, so go check it out. But as a lover of spooky things and a major Scooby-Doo aficionado, a do head, if you will, I of course want as many of the iconic monsters as I can get my grubby little hands on. So, I thought I would break down some of my top wants. Obviously, Scooby as a franchise has been going on for a little over 60 years now, which feels crazy to say, but that means there's no shortage of iconic monsters to choose from, some more iconic than the rest. As such, I've tried to keep my choices narrowed to the original shows like 60s, 70s, 80s, somewhere in there, as well as a few movies, so don't come for me if you don't see your faves. Now, the line already has some really iconic monsters like the Creeper and one of my personal faves, the Spooky Space Kook. The Kook, as of recording this, has not come out yet, though we have seen pictures of it, and while I do generally like it, it looks a little off to me, which I don't know if that's just because of the transition from 2D to 3D or what, but still, he looks like he's kooking it up, and that is what matters. As for the sea creature, yeah, sure, why not? Definitely way lower on the list than I thought we'd go this early, but that kind of excites me, you know? So, first up, the honorable mentions. Now, these are all figures I wouldn't mind getting somewhere down the road, but there are definitely ones I really want first. First up, Dracula and Frankenstein. Now, obviously, these are classic monsters, but they're just too a little generic for my taste. You show them to me, and they could honestly just be generic animated versions of those characters from anything, not necessarily from Scooby Doo. I felt similarly about the Mummy of Anka, whatever, in the first wave. Certainly an iconic monster in not just Scooby, but everywhere, so I can excuse it, I guess. Same with The Ghost. Obviously a classic. I mean, we all grew up with the bedsheet ghost, but unless they do something really weird and unique, it would essentially just be a glorified static accessory, kind of like it has been before, which is cool if they want to include it as such, but I can technically make this figure right now with like an old sheet, some scissors, and some glue. Next up, the Ghost of Elias Kingston. Another arguably iconic one, or maybe not even arguably, but again, just kind of plain. He kind of strikes me as like a mix between the Creeper and the Puppet Master, maybe a little bit of Mr. Hyde mixed in, and then blue. Then we have the Caveman. I mean, it's a caveman. Phantom Racer, not very interesting to me. Sorry, not sorry. Put him in a Fast and Furious toy line, but not here. I want ooh ah, not vroom vroom. Then we have the Skeleton Men. I admittedly like these guys better in the live action movie where, they're actual skeletons. But here, they're just dudes in skeleton suits. Like, I mean, why even bother at that point? That's like, when people wear masks of the Joker, when the whole point is that it's not a mask, it's his face. And look, I will say this would be a good choice for an army builder, so I could allow it on those terms, but otherwise it's just a bit plain. And would be, I think, too plain a sculpt and paint. Then we have Minor 49er. Again, iconic, sure, but he's basically just a dude in bad Gandalf cosplay. Not spooky enough for me. And then we have the Ghost Clown. Now, this one may be more than a bit controversial, but so be it. Look, I understand the Ghost Clown is an iconic Scooby villain to some. Clowns are indeed spooky, and I wouldn't technically mind getting him, but again, it just feels a little bit plain and boring to me. There are ones I would definitely like first. I do think we will see him in the line eventually, which is also why I'm not that worried. I do think the red could really, really pop on the shelf, so he would look nice, but not my first choice. And lastly, the Headless Horseman. Don't get me wrong, I do love a good pumpkin-headed baddie, and I do love the Headless Horseman in general, but again, a smidge plain. Aside from that pumpkin head, there's really not much to him. I do, however, love his unused design for Monsters Unleashed. Of all of the honorable mentions, this one and the Ghost Clown are the ones I would take above all the others. Now, on to the ones I am hoping for. First up, the Phantom Shadows, also known as the Green Phantoms and Giggling Green Ghosts. But let's be honest, Phantom Shadows sounds the coolest. They may honestly be tied with the Space Kook as the spookiest villain, in my opinion. These guys are the reason why I was too afraid to sleep with my little toesies sticking out from under the covers as a kid. They are one of the big reasons why I was afraid of the dark, why I always threw the covers over my head. They messed me up. Now, obviously, these guys seem ripe for a two-pack, which I'd be cool with. So if Jada wanted to keep the costs down, I feel like this would be a good candidate for that. These figures already come with alternate heads, so if they really wanted to, keep the head sculpt the same and maybe just change the paint apps for the eyes and the mouth. Boom, done. As for the body, I don't really see the need for much articulation below maybe the shoulders, waist. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn down like a soft plastic overlay over an ab crunch or something, but the Phantom Shadows look so cool and so creepy because they look so unnatural and wavy. Personally, I'm totally cool with a static body as long as they keep the arms and shoulders articulated, because aside from the face, that's the other real area of expression for these guys. But I mean, let's be real. Everyone is going to be posing them with their arms up and their chains swinging away. I personally would sacrifice the articulation if it meant we could get that extra head in like a one pack, not necessarily a two pack. I really don't want to see there being two separate shadows that take up both monster slots in the wave, so I feel like that's the easiest, cheapest way to do it. I don't even necessarily need the unmasked heads per se. Next up, Charlie the Robot. Charlie is one that's grown on me through the years. As a kid, I didn't really care for him. I loved all the spooky monsters, and a robot always kind of skewed more sci-fi to me than horror, but as I got older and AI became more of a thing, I see the appeal. Charlie is a cold, unfeeling machine. You may be able to appeal to the emotions of one of the human monsters, but Charlie would just straight up kill you. I think the big question with Charlie is what they do for the articulation. Do they go for the more screen accurate and make him bigger, essentially 5 points of articulation figure? Or do they make him less robot like and stiff and more figure like? I know he did bend his limbs a bit in the show, but he's mostly very stiff. I suppose they could go the former route. You could make up for the lack of articulation by including maybe an extra accessory, maybe Scooby in the barrel, like from the opening, or a smaller figure like Scrappy could be fun. Captain Cutler, one of my favorite villains, and I would argue one of the most iconic. He is just a dude in a radioactive green diving suit with some seaweed around him, but he is effective. You instantly recognize him as a Scooby villain. The only thing I think that might stop them from including him, at least for a couple waves, is that they're including the sea monster in wave 2 and may not want too many aquatic villains so close together. Next up, the Witch Doctor. Look, I get it. It's definitely considered a little problematic now, but again, this is another iconic Scooby villain, included in almost every piece of marketing featuring the monsters. I think he's a great mix of spooky and kooky. The mask has that, that kind of uncanny quality to it with the expression. He waves his arms around in that, ooh, I'm gonna get ya, ooga booga kind of way. That's really become synonymous with old school monsters. We did get a Funko Pop of him a couple of years back, so I don't think the public distaste is too strong, but you never know. Not quite as problematic as, say, Geronimo, but your mileage may vary, of course. Again, I think this is one that could really pop on the shelf. Then we have the werewolf. And I'm talking the furry brown and green one. The one I think is referred to as the purple werewolf, not the weird red-eyed, green-skinned one. That one, it doesn't read werewolf to me so much as weird gremlin thing. This is the werewolf I think of when thinking of the Scooby werewolf. Which leads us to the witch and the zombie. This monster mash is turning into a bit of a sausage fest, so we need some ladies up in here. Even though, yeah, the lady turned out to be a man, but you know what I mean. Now, when I say witch, I mean the witch from Which Witch is Witch, not the witch of Old Salem. That version is kind of like the yassified version of this witch. Though I wouldn't mind getting that witch either. And since she shared the screen with the zombie, I think he deserves a spot too. And I hear you asking, well, what separates this generic monster, the zombie, and even the werewolf, from others like Dracula or Frankenstein? And I think the difference is that they really made the zombie and the werewolf their own here. They Scoobified them just enough so you know it's the Scooby-Doo version when looking at them, and not just some generic version that could be from anywhere. But with the zombie, he was the only monster I had a figure of growing up, so I really have some specific nostalgia for him. Next up, Redbeard's Ghost. Again, just classic Scoob. He strikes a good balance, I think, between menacing and fun. He totally would have stabbed the hell out of those kids with his sword. He does have a brighter color palette that we don't often see outside of maybe Daphne, maybe the Ghost Clown, so he really could liven up those shelves as well. He's also a bit on the bigger side, like the Mummy from Wave 1, so he could give us some much needed bulk. Then we have the Alien Invaders. Ooh, I'm switching it up on you. Now, I would love to see these big old broccoli heads on my shelf. They are big and menacing and fun with that classic sci-fi feel. They're also a fun idea, I think, for an army builder, which isn't something we really get in the line with all the unique one-off villains. Back to the classics, we have the Tar Monster. This is one I think they could have some fun with if they wanted. They could really have a unique sculpt, maybe with a softer overlay. I think they could also have fun with the accessories, maybe give him a little puddle of tar that you could swap either the head or the torso onto, kind of like how Mondo did with their Clayface figure. The dark black with that bright green eye as well could be really, really striking. The Headless Spectre. I mean, yeah, you're basically paying for like 3/4 of a figure because it's missing the head, but it's got some really nice presence, I feel. And the lighter colors could pop as well. Plus, who doesn't love a ghost with that little candlestick thing? That's just like, that's classic horror as well, I think. Then you have the Black Knight. I mean, need I say more? Suits of armor coming alive feels very Scooby-Doo, and he was in the very first episode, so you might say the Black Knight is the original Scooby villain. Now they could take some slight liberties like they did with the Mummy and make the eyes even more striking, but even as is, he is a very effective, very iconic monster. Back to the movies, we have the Phantom Virus. He's sort of like the Freddy Krueger of Scooby-Doo. He's got attitude, and he really seems to enjoy terrorizing the gang. Some liberties would probably need to be taken with him, considering he's basically just a 2D zigzag. He didn't look quite right, I think, in the Cyber Chase video game.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god!
What is that?
But I think maybe some clear blue plastic, they could really make him come alive. No pun intended. And speaking of our zappy baddies, we have the 10,000 volt ghost. 10,000 volts in this economy? Come on. This is another one I think they could really have some fun with. Again, just like with the Phantom Virus, very bright, very vibrant, a chance for utilizing different kinds of paint or plastic. The Snow Ghost. This one I put begrudgingly. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but again, iconic, I'll admit, and he would add some bright white to the shelf. There's just really not much to him, I think, but they could maybe spruce him up a bit somehow. I don't know, flock him, something like that. I'll allow it. Scarecrow. I mean, you know I had to do it. It's not the most visually appealing villain, certainly not as spooky as Batman's Scarecrow, but it could turn out to be a very fun figure. Personally, I like the look that they gave him in the Night of 100 Frights video game a little bit more than in the episode, but I'd take either one. I would also take a Scarecrow from Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, the actual Batman Scarecrow, but I know that'll never happen, so just let me have this, okay? The Pterodactyl Ghost. I mean, it's a freaking pterodactyl. What more do you want? It's a little on the nose, sure, but gosh, this could be a lot of fun. This is probably one you could kit bash from existing figures like Sauron from Marvel and such, but an official Scooby one could be a lot of fun. Then we have the Rambling Ghost, a little more obscure, and another one I think that kind of takes something basic and well known and just spookifies it a bit. I think the sort of zombie-ish aesthetic could make for some really fun sculpting, which is exactly how I feel about Dr. Coffin. Another obscure baddie coming at you. Again, I feel he's maybe a little bit on the simple side in the grand scheme of things. He's basically just goblin with a job, but he's creepy enough to get my attention. We don't have many monsters who went to medical school, so kudos to him for that. Creepy Heap from the Deep, another aquatic monster, granted, but this one, just super kooky. A cyclops with kind of seaweed hair, claws, and I just love how in, again, the Night of 100 Frights game, it just kind of bops along. It always looks kind of scared or surprised. It's just a gem. And then we have the Luna Ghost. An out of left field choice, I know, but hear me out. The Luna Ghost has become iconic in its own right. Everyone remembers the Luna Ghost from that first Scooby live action movie, and it had all of, what, 2 minutes of screen time? It's a simple design, very effective, and they've already cartoonized it for both the tie ins for the movie and Mystery Incorporated. So just work off that design if need be. I think it could be a lot of fun. It's sort of like the Frank the Bunny from Donnie Darko, but for Scooby-Doo. And then for fun, I threw in a couple box sets. First and foremost, the Hex Girls. I mean, need I say more? I know they're not villains per se, but they are baddies nonetheless. Look, Jada, I need the Hex Girls, okay? And I won't allow for anything less than a 3-pack. We need all three. I do not want to risk not getting one or two of them. Hex Girls. Now, next, the Ghoul School, another iconic group of gals, and one that I'd really want all of. I'd expect this one to run a little more, considering there are differing sizes, of course, but I would take all of them for sure, maybe in like a con exclusive pack. Could also be a fun idea for pack-ins with other figures, but again, with only 2 to 3 figures per wave, it would split them up between waves, and I don't want to be without one or two. Then we have a Zombie Island box set. Give me the Werecats, give me a Morgan Moonstone zombie. Just yes, yes. And that about does it. Obviously, I could go on all day. Every villain from every show. Where Are You? Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, What's New Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, on and on. They're just all iconic in their own right. Justice for Chickenstein, I hear you say? Yes, justice for Chickenstein. Everybody has their favorite well-known villain and favorite obscure villain, so let me know yours down below, and let me know which ones you'd like to see in the line. I know we're only a wave or two into the new Jada line, but I am really excited to see where this goes. I'm sure we'll see a few of these monsters from my list before the line ends, which is hopefully a while from now. Either way, I know I'm in for the long haul, so give me whatever you got, Jada. I wanted a true, well-articulated, well-made Scooby line for ages now, and it seems like we may have finally gotten it. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. It really does mean a lot. This is just something I wanted to do to share some of my excitement for the line. Let me know which Scooby villains you'd like to see down below. I appreciate you being here. I'll be back soon with more creepy collection content. But in the meantime, y'all, stay spooky.